Welcome to the post F1 edition of Dolphins in Depth, a podcast provided to you by the Miami Herald. I'm your host, Miami Herald columnist Omar Kelly. Joining me is Miami Herald's beat writer Isaiah Smalls, who is coming off. This can't be your first F1 experience.
It was my first F1 weekend.
Oh,
look, I still got the band on to prove it, just so that people, you know what I'm saying, just so that they, you know.
Yeah, you was living the life. Unfortunately, we in the media contingent, we were making fun of you on the way back because you lost your baby. You cradling a bottle, like it was an airfit, trying to sneak it out.
Look. See, sometimes you have to have multiple, and you have to be able to, sometimes give away one of your children to save two more. Okay, I'm a firm believer of that. I gave away one of my children. And save two.
But here's the problem with Isaiah Smalls. The young players, they not coachable. We told you, stop cradling it like a baby. And you had to, you think you could be isolation and, a two-man press. Isaiah, sometimes you got to listen to instructions and coaching. We told you. We tried to run a pig for you.
Look. Well, it didn't help that when I'm walking, all of a sudden I hear, "Hey, yo, Isaiah, she talking to you from you."
I had to sacrifice you for everybody else.
I was locked in. I wasn't even.
I had to sacrifice you for everybody else. What you want to run and chase you down? Stop, make it a bigger issue?
She was not gonna catch me. Don't you know?
You were gonna take off?
I wasn't gonna take off. I was gonna keep going until at some point. She's leaving her post, and she's gonna. So is she worried about one person who got by her, or is she gonna worry about the 20 other dudes? You know what I'm saying?
People not getting arrested, Isaiah. Come on.
and then she's not gonna arrest me. What is she gonna do? She has limited power.
But F1 was an amazing event. It's one of the bigger events that I did not have the vision that Steve Ross and Tom Garfinkel had for the event. It has turned into not only an entity that has helped him raise the value of the franchise to $10 billion at the minimum, but it's also brought in $1 billion into the economy. F1 weekend is now turning to something just under Art Basel.
No, it is.
Which to me is unreal in 4 years?
Yeah, it's the fourth year. Yeah. I wasn't privy to it at all until earlier in the week. My friend was like, "Yo, you going to any of the events?" And I'm like, "The events? You talking that Art Basel talk? What you mean a bunch of events?" And I know you got to see Miss Lauryn Hill in the Great Wyclef. Very jealous.
Amazing, epic performance.
Very jealous of you. I'm maybe next time. I wasn't trying to give up. What would you say? They were trying to make you sign away your third.
Oh yeah. They got the rights to my firstborn at this point. I mean, the documents I had to sign to watch a free concert of Lauryn Hill perform, and she did 2 hours. When I say 2 hours, and Wyclef had to drag her off the stage. She didn't want to stop by the 1 p.m. stop time, but. Anyway, but F1, props to the Dolphins organization and franchise. Hopefully, I say this all the time, and I don't think people put the respect that is due on Steve Ross and what he's trying to do in terms of building sports events and environments and communities for South Florida. Think about it. F1 is something that has brought $1 billion into the local economy, and into the Miami Gardens economy. I know a woman across the street, she was parking cars for $100 a car. And she had the spot for about 8 cars. And this is my best friend's aunt.
Yeah.
So we were like, "Can we park at your spot?" She was like, "It's gonna cost you. I'm gonna give you that discount, but it's gonna cost you because you cutting into my money."
Yeah, you messing up my check,
Yeah. These people listen, and it's just such a wonderful event. I didn't know it was a party with a race around it.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Definitely. I couldn't even tell you who won that joint. His name was Oscar. I do remember his name was Oscar, and he was wearing papaya. And he drove a McLaren. So that's but shout out F1 for sure.
But as I was saying, they put in the one thing you could say about the Dolphins organization, they spare no expense, and they put in whatever resources they need in order to make their franchise right. or in order to make whatever they're doing right, from Miami Open to F1. And I would say the same thing with the Dolphins organization. Where you can criticize them is the people that are in charge at the top level of the football organization. And that is fair criticism. And it has been for quite a while, going back to when he took over the franchise and Bill Parcells left, and then he had Sperano and Ireland, and they bickered. They didn't even talk for a year. They didn't talk for a single year. The GM and the head coach did not communicate.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But that was because Steve. That was Steve Ross's fault. Steve Ross took a trip and took the GM to Stanford to go talk to Harbaugh, who was going to leave the college ranks to go coach in the NFL. And Steve Ross was like, yo, I need to have a conversation. Only problem is he had a head coach. Ireland got Ireland.
Like some real Dolphin stuff. I can't lie to you. That sounds like very on brand. Like, come on now. That's crazy.
I mean, it was a tough lesson learned. And then we had to make amends in kumbaya, but unfortunately the relationship was severed. The GM stepped out on the head coach, and they didn't talk, and their wives feuded, and it was just a bad look. But we've had. Listen, I'm not gonna bring up all the mess.
You were just praising them too. That's so funny.
Part of the reason that Chris Grier is here and continues to be here, and Mike McDaniel is here, is because we've had so many dysfunctional relationships in terms of what's going on in the top organization. Mm-hmm. Both of these guys work well together.
They do.
They're very. If you know Chris Grier and you know Mike McDaniel, they have very minimal egos. That I could tell you for a fact. And whether or not it works, who knows? Because I still personally believe that they could save this season if a lot of things go right, which starts with Tua staying healthy, starts with the offensive line getting drastically better, starts with them fortifying that defensive line. And the Dolphins did that in this draft. Let's get to, before we talk about this draft, we got another item of news, which is we possibly might know a suitor for Jalen Ramsey. And Jalen Ramsey, as we've always stated, cannot be traded until June 1st. And the reason
should not be traded. Should not be traded.
Should not be traded. Correct.
Should not be traded. Yes.
Only an idiot would trade him before June 1st. And that's because if you trade him before June 1st, you're losing $9 million in cap space. If you trade him June 1st or after, you're gaining $8.9 million in cap space. So, and that would be the equivalent of money to sign at least 3 veteran free agents. So tell me, Isaiah, who is the latest suitor for Mr. Ramsey?
Well, it's actually a familiar face, if you will. Actually, let's get even more specific. It's the team that traded him away back in 2023, the Los Angeles Rams. Look, obviously, there's a very fondness right there. You know, Ramsey helped lead them to that Super Bowl win in 2022 or 2021. And so, you know, they didn't necessarily need help at the corner position, but I mean, if you can add someone like Jalen Ramsey, you're going to want to do it. And so recently, Sean McVay was asked about potentially adding Ramsey, and you know, I'm going to just read a quick excerpt of what he said. You know, he's a total stud. And you look at, obviously, he has continued to play at a really high level. He and I have kept in great touch ever since we ended up trading him to Miami. Special competitor, great person, great father. And so there are a lot of layers when you're talking about a player of this caliber. All right, with regards to contract, the compensation that they would be looking for in exchange for receiving a player of this magnitude. And so those conversations are ongoing, and as I'm sure they are with multiple teams. And we'll see, but we're never going to shy away from opportunity to increase the competitiveness of our roster or add great players as long as it fits within the framework of everything that an acquisition like that would entail. That's hell of a coach speak at the end. But yeah, basically the Rams are interested. You know, the GM, I believe his name is Les Snead, confirmed during the first day of the draft that they were in fact in talks with the Dolphins, and you know, we'll see. Obviously, a deal didn't materialize, during the draft. And so it's only a matter of time now before such a deal gets worked out, and we see Jalen Ramsey, unfortunately, no longer in the aqua and orange. But it is what it is at this point. The marriage isn't necessarily working. As you've mentioned before, it seems to be a some sort of, I don't want to say disagreement, but just a misunderstanding. There's something going on with him and McDaniel. Basically, let's just point it out. When
there's tension.
There's tension. Perfect. Great word for it. There's tension between him and McDaniel. When you ask McDaniel about his relationship with Jalen Ramsey, he essentially declined to comment, which is rare for a guy that loves to talk and is very loquacious, right? So, you can kind of glean there, and plus with some of the things that Jalen Ramsey posted on Instagram, it's clear that this marriage and partnership is ending sooner rather than later. So,
yeah, and you could look at the Rams roster and see that there's a need for cornerback. Kilo Witherspoon, Quentin Lake, Darius Williams, Josh.
They don't have a guy.
Yeah, I cover the NFL. I know 80% of the players. I don't think I've heard of any of these guys. And
I've only heard of a few of them because we played them last year. Yeah. The Dolphins played them last year.
Now it'll be interesting to see what kind of currency or players that the Dolphins can get from the Rams. I'd have to take a deep scour onto their roster to see. Probably this is going to be a situation where a team that has either a veteran that's probably overpaid that the team wants to move on from, and he happens to play a position where Miami has needs, let's say a guard. I'm just giving you an example. You make that player swap. But I don't know if it's going to be for a draft pick. And if it is for a draft pick, it's probably going to be for something maybe in the third day. Not that Jalen Ramsey isn't worth more. It's just a matter of, this is how business is done. He's got an expensive contract. The team that's probably going to try to lure him wants to make him readjust the contract. Jalen Ramsey doesn't have to do a damn thing. And as we've seen, when Jalen Ramsey doesn't have to do a damn thing, he's not going to do a damn thing. And it'll be interesting. I think this is more so about finding a organization that's won a contender and has a philosophical fit for where Jalen Ramsey is. Jalen Ramsey is a dog, and he wants to be on a team led by dogs, play with players who are dogs. I honestly I'm not going to speak for Jalen Ramsey because I think Jalen Ramsey can speak for himself, but I don't think he feels that's what he's dealing with here in Miami.
And one more note just on the compensation. You got to remember what the Dolphins gave up for him. They gave up a third-round pick for him, right? So
and Tyler and Hunter Long, which isn't much, but it's also a player. So
there's virtually no reason why a team that traded a third pick, for him is going to accept really anything more than that, so to speak, right? So it has to be, to your point, a third day selection. At least that's, if I'm negotiating, that's where I'm starting with. I'm not going to accept. He's 2 years older. I mean, it's still Jalen Ramsey, but he's 2 years older. Like, it just doesn't make sense for you to go below that threshold.
2 years older, salary's heavier. Like, you're not getting a third day pick. You're not getting a third round pick. You're probably getting, at the best you could do, is a fourth. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out for the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, we're probably maybe 3 weeks away before something like that materializes. I don't think Miami is the only suitor. I'm pretty sure a team like Atlanta has a level of interest, if not some of the other teams. I know Jaylen is from Tennessee. I don't think Tennessee is a contender, so I don't think that. But also, I think, and I don't want to speak for Jaylen. I think family dynamics also plays a part in what he's trying to do. I actually think Tampa would be a good fit for him. I know Todd Bowles likes him some physical cornerbacks. They're a team that's probably closer to contending than Miami. Definitely. And so let's get into this rookie class, because I said initially that the rookie class, or they're key to this team's success. I wrote a column in the Miami Herald that was published in today's newspaper. That's kind of what I do. I write columns. And it was basically about this. Huh?
So thank you for reminding us.
Yeah. I don't just make podcasts. I actually write. There's a hell of a lot of pressure going to be placed on this rookie class. and understand it's justifiably so. And it needs to be done because, unfortunately, during the Mike McDaniel era, there have been so few rookies who come in and had significant contributions. It just has not been the nature of the way that they've done things, either because of business or because of the caliber of the class. Devon Achane came in here and gave you a significant amount of contribution. I'm trying to think of other rookies during Mike McDaniel's tenure. We saw Jalen.
Who? Chop had a good year last. Chop had a good year last year.
Chop had an okay year. I would not necessarily say it was a good year. Chop didn't start, and it was justifiable that he didn't start because he didn't earn it. He couldn't set the edge. He's really a one-trick pony right now. This year and year two, I'd like to see him become better against the run. When he was on the field, teams knew that they can run at him and attack him, and I don't feel comfortable with that. You're not a starter in the NFL as an edge player, as a two-way player, unless you become a two-way player. That's not something. It was a decent year. Was it good? No, it was a decent year. I think Chop has the talent. Like, keep in mind, you lost your two starters to begin the year.
Yeah.
One guy retired, so it was wide open for you to be everything that you need to be. And I could argue to you that Chop didn't even have an Emmanuel Ogbah season, and this team just basically threw Emmanuel Ogbah away. 5 sacks, playing on a torn bicep. He went and signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Could Chop be better? Absolutely. Is my expectation for him to be better? Absolutely. He's got to spend the season getting stronger in the shoulders and so he can becoming a stronger player, so he can become a better technical edge setter. But over the years during Mike McDaniel era, we had Chop Robinson. We discussed him. Patrick Paul had a okay season, but that was a redshirt year. He got probably a little bit more playing time than I expected. Jalen Wright started out early, then didn't do anything. That was a 2024 class. Last year's class, you got Cam Smith. You got Devon Achane.
Crazy. The look was crazy. The look was crazy. Yeah.
Devon Achane had a phenomenal rookie season. He was a 1,300-yard producer last year. I saw him at the F1 race. He looks a little bit bigger, maybe about 7 pounds heavier muscle-wise. And these are things that he's going to have to need to be a full, how many touches would he give? To be a full 400 touch kind of player. Because that's a lot in the NFL. His body has to get bigger. Really, that's the only real people in the 2023 draft class. Because then you get to 2022: Channing Tindall, Eric Uzukama, Cameron Good, Skylar Thompson.
It's been rather underwhelming, to say the least.
Yes. So this year, and they need younger, cheaper player to come in and invest a lot of playing time in him and invest a lot of developmental time. As I said previously on the Dolphins In-Depth podcast, I like the fact that they tripled down on defensive linemen. Would I have loved for them to add another offensive lineman other than Jonah Savaiinaea? Yes, I would have. However, I will say this. If you love a guy, go get him. And if he pans out,
exactly,
that's great. I think some of the bigger questions and concerns about this class is the later round picks and how much they can contribute. Jason Marshall Jr., 39 starts on the college level. I didn't know this, but he finished his senior season with a shoulder injury, which basically means he's probably going to be rehabbing. I'm not even sure he's going to be participating in the offseason pro. Actually, you know what? He did work out with the Dolphins at their pro day, and he felt great about his workout. So, and this is a former 5-star player, but we know we need starting cornerbacks. Add him to the mix of Storm Ducks and Cam Smiths and Ethan Bonners and Isaiah Johnsons and Jason Maitre, and we'll figure it out. Dante Trader Jr., safety from Maryland, 2-sport athlete, lacrosse player. What do you expect from him? Is he legitimately going to be in contention for this starting spot?
I mean, you got to try to, if you look at everybody, the common theme with all the safeties that were signed from the Dolphins, right, is that none of them has been a full-time starter for many games, right? Ashton Davis started a handful of games. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head. Iffy was the starter before getting hurt, I believe, last year. And so these are guys; those two guys haven't been a full-time starter. So you kind of have to expect him to try to compete, whether or not he'll actually make that make that jump into the NFL as a starter position. Because I believe his one of his main goals was to just make the team. Right? He's a fifth round pick. Like, the chances of him, not making the team are very high. So you got to kind of grind to, to get there. Right. And so, I think he has a chance. I liked what his teammate said about him, Jordan Phillips. Like, he's a guy that is just grinding. Right. And to play two sports, you kind of got to know your stuff. Right. And so there's certainly a chance. We'll have to see him in the program and see how he looks at everything. But there's a chance. Right. There isn't as I'm looking at it, I'm sure you can agree. I feel like the two safety spots, they're up for grabs.
Absolutely. No question.
There's nobody that's coming in and say, hey, that's my spot. So he certainly has a chance.
Yeah. Let me ask you about we still got to discuss before I do that. Let me talk about Ollie Gordon the second. And Quinn Ewers. What kind of expectations can we put on those two late round draft picks, the 6th and the 7th? But Ollie's a former Doak Campbell Award winner. So he's recognized as one of the top backs in the nation during the 2023 season, came off a down year. But can he add that oomph, that power, that hammer to this running back stable?
I think he can just based off of those 2023 stats. Last year, what happened was what? They kind of knew about him, right? You're not surprising anybody with that man.
His offense. Right? I looked at the film. His offensive line and his running back was trash.
Look. So
I don't understand why he even went back. I don't. Maybe
because he was a sophomore. He was a sophomore. He had to. He had to go back. He had to go back. He was a sophomore. He literally had to go back. And so that's why I think.
But he didn't. He could have transferred.
He could have transferred. But
you're the award winner. Somebody offer you $1 million.
In this day and age, though, I think you have to give credit for the guys that want to just build it with those people, right? I think Jonas Tabanea went through something similar. Like, I'm sure he had the opportunity to transfer last year, and he was like, "Look, I want to stay." Right, and I think you got to give credit to the guys that are willing to build up a program.
I don't. This is a business. This is a business.
It is what it is. Now, do you think, obviously, it landed him in the 6th round, and this is why I think the Dolphins low-key got a steal. He was, the running back class this year was really tough. Like, there was a lot of guys in there that I think will be starters when it's all said and done, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think Ollie Gordon, the fact that they got him on the 3rd day in the 6th round, and his running style is something that the Dolphins need, right? They need a power runner. I think the expectations, they're not going to be super high, right? I'm not expecting them to be RB1 and be every down back. Obviously, there's someone there by the name of Devon Achane who kind of has earned that right. But I will say that I think he could emerge. Ollie Gordon now can emerge as like a guy who's that 3rd down back, right? The short yardage situations, when I saw way too many, 1st and goals turned to 4th and goals and field goals last year, right? Hopefully, Ollie Gordon can be one of those guys that can help punch the ball in on the 1, the 2.
He was projected as a 6th round pick, so it's not like I have him in a 4th rounder and one guy, a 6th rounder and another guy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. He only played 3 years. He could have transferred though.
He could have. He could have. I hear you. And then
I don't know how much Oklahoma State was paying, but hey, it is what it is.
And also, wait, let's not forget, because I remember now that I'm talking about it, you got to think about the Oklahoma State running backs that came before him, right? Barry, Thurman, Thomas, right? Why not want to add your name to that ilk, right? And so I think there's nothing wrong. Even more recently, the guy Chuba Hubbard, right? Like so they have a history of producing good running backs. Now, am I calling him the next Barry Sanders? No. But I think that, you got to give credit to guys that want to add their name to that list, right?
Yeah, but 880 rushing yards on 190 carries.
Still 4.9 yards per carry.
4.6. Yeah. It's not bad. It's not bad.
And I think he still had double-digit touchdowns, right? Or am I tripping?
No, he had 13 touchdowns. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah. Listen, you can find a back anywhere in the draft, and they turn out to be phenomenal home run hits. And I will say this because this is what I'm told by people who know Mike McDaniel, people who've worked with Mike McDaniel, people who've evaluated talent with Mike McDaniel. Running back is the position that he evaluates the best. So I will let that ride. I will let that ride, and I'm fine. I'm fine with whatever they have. They had the 3 young players.
Mm-hmm.
What about Mr. Quinn Ewers?
Okay, look. I'm gonna just stop you right there. I don't think he should really have any expectations. He's a backup quarterback that might be the third string quarterback. So I think he should just worry about learning the offense, right? Learning the offense. That's all you need to know. Learn the offense, because God forbid your number gets called, right? God forbid.
Yeah.
Look, we just want to see competency. We the backup quarterback situation last year was very volatile. It was very, very volatile. I'm sure Mike McDaniel lost some nights of sleep, because I certainly did. But but I say that to say they're coming here on paper right now. I like it better. The backup quarterback's better than they were last year, right? Because Zach Wilson has been a starter in this league. He hasn't been a high level starter in this league, but he has been a starter in this league, right? And so you got to give credit to where credit's due.
I'm waiting for judgment because until I see them play. I was not a fan of Quinn Ewers in the draft in college football in the draft process. No, I didn't care about the Manning that was waiting in the wings. It didn't make sense to me why he didn't transfer and try to get a $4 million payday from some other college program. But hey, that's not my business. That's none of my business. He went on and
treated him right.
Huh?
How can you be mad? Texas?
No, he had 1 more year eligibility. He could have stayed in college for 1 more year, and he chose to come out. He chose to come out in the draft, and it ended up a 7th round pick. And there's controversy. There is a person who is an NIL guru, expert, lawyer, who believes that if a player like Quinn Ewers challenged the system and legally sued the NCAA to go back to college after being a 7th round pick, that he could potentially win that lawsuit and play another season of college athletics and then re-enter the draft. Yes.
Talk to me about this. Break this down for me, because I'm not privy to this.
Just like all of the challenges to the NCAA have been won, including you could transfer as many times as you want, the pay for play. Now you can go, and in fact, I believe you can do if you do in this day and age the Maurice Clarett lawsuit again, where you file and say to the NFL, we want the right and the opportunity, like the kid from at Ohio State. You know the name. What's his name?
Yeah.
Kid.
You said Maurice Clarett.
No. I'm talking about the wide receiver who's got
JJ Smith.
Oh, at Ohio State, the number 1 wide receiver at Ohio State.
Yeah, Jeremiah Smith. Okay. From down here, who went to Shaman. Jeremiah Smith. Yeah. If
he can next year file a lawsuit against the NCAA and petition to let file a lawsuit against the NFL and petition them to let him enter the draft now, because there's harm and loss of income potentially
that is true.
By staying in college and exposing himself to risk, whereas a right to work. But the same thing can apply for Ewers. Ewers should probably make about good $2 million in college game right now if he chose to say, hey, I'm not satisfied with being a 7th round pick for the Miami Dolphins. I want to go back into college ranks. A team like Maryland, Syracuse, somebody with some dollars who doesn't have a quarterback can do it on his behalf. And it would depend on how fast the court system works. He could play another year of eligibility, enter the draft. There used to be a time back in the day where they draft prospects before they even finish school.
That's true.
And they continue to play, and teams will own their rights and blah, blah, blah. Everything is fair game to be reassessed, reevaluated.
I hear you. My only point of contention is, do you think his tape this year, like let's say he did that, right? Do you think his tape with the Syracuse, with the Maryland, will be better than throwing to Matthew Golden and Isaiah Bond? Let's just be honest. Matthew Golden was the 1st round pick. Isaiah Bond would have probably, barring the legal issues, would have probably at least been at the very
second
day 2 pick, right?
Yeah. Where did he end up? Because I really liked him.
He's nowhere. He's on the street. I'm pretty sure. I'm Googling, but I'm pretty sure no one signed him.
The evaluation on Quentin Ewers is consistently struggles. He has consistent struggles on tape. Will show superstar potential on one throw, and then the next throw, you leaves you scratching your head. Missing a handful of games with multiple injuries, which raises durability concerns. We're quite familiar with that. He'll have to improve his consistency. Here's my thing on Ewers. Brock Purdy was the last pick in his draft, and he's now arguably a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. You never know. You never know, and it really comes down to quarterback development. Kyle Wilson, I come down to quarterback development. But can I say with conviction that Quinn Ewers can't be better than Kyle Wilson? No, I can't. And it all comes down to how quickly you learn the offense, what kind of chemistry you develop, and how you execute. So, best of luck to him. Brock Purdy, remember, Purdy beat out what was that quarterback's name?
Trey Lance.
Trey Lance. Brock Purdy beat out Trey Lance. With inferior.
The next year. Yeah, because he got hurt. Remember, he got hurt first. And
then, the next. But he got hurt, and the season took off, and they basically decided that we're sticking with this young guy because we've seen just enough. And I'm always a person who believes in slow cooking quarterbacks. Let me bring you to this this question that obviously we know the expectations for Jonah. You got to be better than Liam Eichenberg. That's there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You just got to be better than Liam Eichenberg out the gate. With Kenneth Grant and Jordan Phillips, what are your expectations for them as defensive linemen?
I think Jordan Phillips is a little bit on the younger side, right? Like, so I think that might be a guy that you say you like to slow cook your quarterbacks. We're slow cooking Jordan Phillips here. I think he'll be 21 when camp starts. So we're gonna slow cook him. Kenneth Grant, you gotta come in and be that guy from day one. I'm gonna be honest with you. And I think that he has. Well, look. At the very least, he has to be Robin to Zach Sealer's Batman, right? Zach Sealer is the guy on that defensive line right now, right? Between him, Kenneth Grant, and then those edge rushers with Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb, they have to wreak terror. Like, I want that unit to be the strongest unit that the Dolphins have. Not again. I'm going to repeat that again for people because I think that might come out as a surprise because they might say, "Oh, we still got Tyreek, we still got Jalen Waddle," and that's fine. That's fine. Like, I still believe in that offensive ability. But I really want that unit to set the tone for the season because I think it could be scary, right? At its peak, I think that unit can be scary. I'm a fan of what they did, investing in the defensive line, investing in the defensive trenches in order to. I think to me, if I'm an opposing offensive coordinator, I want to, I'm a little bit not scared, right? Because they've never played, right? But I think you got to be looking at Miami's D-line and being like, oh, okay. Like this is they might be a little bit scary next year, and I think that's what you want.
Yeah, I like the interior, especially a lot of guys 6'4", 310 to 330. You've got a nice rotation if you include Zach Biggers, some of the other guys that they got in camp. I want to pose this to you. Christian Wilkins produced in his rookie season as a first-round pick, 13th overall. I think it was 13th, can't remember. Maybe 18th. 56 tackles, 2 sacks.
I want a little bit more than that. I want 3 sacks. Just 3 sacks. 3 sacks.
But they're not sack producers.
I know what the defensive tackle is supposed to. I know, but I still want you to be a little bit of a game record. Look, okay. I ask a lot from my defensive tackles. That I want you to be able to not only eat space, but I like guys that can go chase after the quarterback a little bit. Now that might not be.
These are not the guys that you drafted, though.
I know that is not the guy that I drafted. I understand that, but
you drafted 3 run stuffers.
But what did Chris Greer say? And I believe Mike McDaniel doubled down on that they believe that Kenneth Grant has the potential to be a serviceable pass rusher, right?
Mm-hmm.
Serviceable. Now that I might have thrown the word serviceable in there. I might have to go back check that.
Yeah.
But I will say this. I think if he matches those numbers, that'll be a good rookie season. For sure.
Yeah, definitely. All right, folks, we've got rookie camp later on this week, and Dolphins in Depth will be back to give you our overall assessments of how the Dolphins rookies performed at their showcase in rookie camp. So we will see you later on this week on Dolphins in Depth.